Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next hour. India's Dr. S. Jaishankar strongly pitches for countering three evils of terrorism, extremism and separatism at the SCO Summit in Islamabad. US raises concerns with Israel over bombing campaign in Beirut, gives 30 days deadline to boost humanitarian aid into Gaza. Early voting for the US elections begins in the battleground state of Georgia. Voters turn out in record numbers. The rule requiring hand count of election ballots blocked by a judge. And in sports, toss for the first test between India and New Zealand delayed due to heavy rain in Bengaluru. Representing India, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar participated in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Heads of Government meeting on Wednesday. The 23rd meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO Council of Heads of Government meeting is being held in Pakistan's capital Islamabad. India remains actively engaged in the SCO format, participating in various mechanisms and initiatives within the organization. This is the first high-level visit of an Indian foreign minister to the neighboring nation in 9 years. Earlier in the day, Dr. Jaishankar planted an Arjuna sapling at the Indian High Commission under the initiative Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, or One Tree for the Mother campaign. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar delivered India's statement at the SCO Council of Heads of Government meeting this morning in Islamabad. In his address, the minister flagged concerns over terrorism and extremism. He noted that the SCO needs to be able and adept at responding to challenges facing in a turbulent world. The minister said that SCO's primary goal of combating terrorism, separatism and extremism is even more crucial in current times. It requires honest conversation, trust, good neighborliness and reaffirming commitment to SCO Charter. The SCO needs to be firm and uncompromising in countering these three evils, Jaishankar said. He added globalization and rebalancing our current day realities, which need to be taken forward by the SCO countries. He asserted that cooperation must be based on mutual respect and sovereign equality, and that it should recognize the territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations. The minister also stressed that industrial cooperation can enhance competitiveness and expand labor markets. He highlighted that collaborative connectivity and environmental protection are possible avenues of cooperation. Dr. Jaishankar noted that Indian initiatives and endeavors like digital public infrastructure, DPI, women-led development, International Solar Alliance hold strong relevance for the SCO. The minister also said that SCO should lead advocating that global institutions need to keep pace through reformed multilateralism to make the UNSC more representative, inclusive and transparent. Finally, he stressed that to renew our resolve to attain the objectives of the SCO, it is essential that one keeps in mind mutuality of interests and abide by the do's and don'ts of the Charter. So, Dr. Jaishankar arrived in Islamabad on Tuesday and attended a dinner reception for the SCO delegates, where he exchanged pleasantries with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Both the leaders warmly shook hands and held a very brief interaction. This is the first high-level visit from India in years amid continuing strain in ties between the two countries. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Mongolian Prime Minister Uyun Erdin Luvsanamasarай on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Islamabad. Both the leaders expressed pleasure in discussing ways to further strengthen bilateral ties between the two countries. DD India's Jessica Taneja now joins us on the story from New Delhi. Jessica, Jaishankar in his opening remarks stressed on mutual trust, sovereign equality and good neighborliness. Put this into context for us.
Well, the fact of the matter is that, when we're talking about globalization and balancing of ties and looking at the regional players in this particular multilateral setup, the word here is multipolarity, and something that Dr. S. Jaishankar also said in his speech. And also, as you pointed out, the focus on, working towards removing these terror groups, or at least working on that framework which would ensure more peace and stability in terms of security cooperation in the region, has remained one of the agendas. Now, some may say it's a thinly veiled attempt, that Dr. S. Jaishankar may have made, especially when it comes to China and Pakistan, but it's the security issue that takes center stage in his speech, to an extent where he does, in fact, even to an extent, point the three evils, terrorism, separatism and extremism, are intolerable. And in fact, looking at the current geopolitics and the way it's evolving, it's necessary to look at such multilateral forums and perhaps, if not an alternate to what the Western architecture offers at this point. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit also offers for these key regional players. And look at the countries that are part of this SCO grouping. You have Central Asian countries, particularly, and you have Iran as well in it. You also have Belarus, which joined in very recently. Pakistan, of course, which is hosting it. And apart from that, Russia, India, and China. And especially with the relationship that India wants to establish with the Central Asian countries, particularly Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, has been important. And this particular multilateral forum also gives an opportunity to engage with these countries more, which is set aside from various other multilateral setups that India is currently part of, Tanvi.
Yeah. Jessica, what was also said by Jaishankar was building genuine partnerships and not unilateral agendas. So can we expect a thawing of relations between India and Pakistan at this juncture?
Well, this particular grouping or this multilateral event is limited to economic and security cooperation and not necessarily delves deep into, let's say, talks on matters relating to issues, bilateral issues separately. So even though there was an anticipation that, Dr. S. Jaishankar would have conversation on a bilateral meeting with his counterpart, that of course was rejected outright, even during even before his arrival to Islamabad. So especially when it comes to India and Pakistan relationship, nothing will move forward because India maintains the stand that terror and talks do not go together till the time the issue of the border, in fact, with China is also resolved. Conversation, of course, becomes very difficult, but setting a stage for talks is something India would be open to only when the environment for it is provided, which of course suits the conditionality that India wants to continue with further trade, air links or rail links, etc. That whatever is being touted by the Pakistan media at this point. You heard Bilawal Bhutto, the foreign minister of Pakistan, yesterday also speak to the local media saying that they're open to dialogue. They want to talk about issues between the two countries and perhaps look at a way where talks could introduce a different mechanism between the two and perhaps start a channel of conversation and normalization of ties. Now, we in India, and particularly looking at the establishment and how it wants to steer that particular idea forward, at least, or the talks with Pakistan forward, would only be sitting on the table if and only if Pakistan promises to take actions on the terror groups that still continue to operate out of its soil.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica, for those updates. India's President Draupadi Murmu has concluded a successful visit to Algeria. The President is now headed to Mauritania on the second leg of a three-nation African visit. In Algeria, the President was accorded a warm ceremonial farewell. She was seen off by Algerian Prime Minister Nader Larbaoui and other higher officials. During her one-day visit to Mauritania, President Murmu is scheduled to have bilateral meetings with Mauritanian leadership and interact with the Indian diaspora. Later in the evening, the President will leave for Malawi for the final leg of a three-nation visit. With an aim to bolster defence cooperation between India and Japan, Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi is on a 4-day visit to the island country. During the visit, he met Defence Minister of Japan, General Nakatani, and conveyed his commitment to further boost the bilateral defence cooperation between the two nations. The Army Chief also held bilateral meetings with his Japanese counterpart, General Yasunori Morishita, and discussed plans for enhancing the Army-to-Army ties. 6G technology is 100 times faster than 5G, and we are moving much faster in the technology sector. 6G technology is the future and the connectivity is the buzzword, and an international symposium was organized at IMC 2024 India Mobile Congress. 5 MOUs were also signed between Bharat 6G Alliance and various partners. DD India's Anil Thomas reports.
Technology, media and telecommunication industry leaders from across the world converged in the India Mobile Congress to deliberate on the global 6G programs. The respective national strategies for 6G and focus areas will be discussed at length in the event.
We followed the world in follow. We march with the world in 5G. But when we work with all of you together across the globe, it is our aspiration that in collaboration with you, we will lead the world in 6G.
India has achieved the fastest rollout of 5G networks globally. It now stands at the cusp of becoming the leading contributor to the 6G revolution.
We have brought the various forums and institutions that are working on 6G already to come for an open dialogue, and the intent is to see how we can promote an open collaborative research by which India's requirements are embedded into what their thinking is. At the same time, whatever good ideas and requirements that they have is also embedded into our research programs.
The International Symposium also saw 5 new Memorandum of Understanding signed, taking the tally of overall MOUs signed by Bharat 6G Alliance to 8.
It's a very good step to have signed this MOU with the Bharat 6G Alliance, because it shows that we all work jointly towards the same objectives. To achieve global standards, to achieve affordability, availability, ubiquitous connectivity, and also simplicity.
New cutting-edge research, key architectural principles and emerging technologies that will shape the 6G landscape in India and the world found a reference at the symposium.
Energy consumption is a big element of mobile networks, and we want to make with our use cases application, we want to make the network, we want to make the planet more sustainable, but we have to get down with the level of energy that we are consuming. So I'm looking after technology, so many of the technology challenges that we are addressing is how we can make the network more efficient and in the process consume much less energy.
The future promises to be seamless and will surely empower people at large with the advent of 6G. The technology also has the potential to bridge the urban-rural gap effectively. Anil Thomas report for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. Russia ramps up assaults on Kiev. Ukraine reports dire frontline conditions. French President Emmanuel Macron speaks to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Bibi opposes the call for a unilateral ceasefire. China says it will not promise to renounce the use of force over Taiwan, adding it is aimed at a small minority of separatists.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will talk about the recent Army Commanders Conference 2024 held at Gangtok in Sikkim. We will tell you why these conferences are held and what do they discuss. Why was this Army Commanders Conference at Gangtok strategically so important? On the other side, in our neighborhood, why is Pashtun Tahaffuz movement a challenge for Pakistan? And also we will be diving deep into the story that has been at the forefront of global headlines, the tension between China and Taiwan. And also, we'll tell you how Taiwan plans to defend itself. Watch Defense Dynamics on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Tanvi Taneja. On to the Asia Pacific. China's Taiwan Affairs Office has said on Wednesday that the country will not promise to renounce the use of force over Taiwan. However, this is aimed at external interference and a small minority of separatists, China added. China staged a day of large-scale drills around the island on Monday. It said were a warning to separatist acts following last week's National Day speech by Taiwan President Lai Ching-te. China has, over the past 5 years, sent warships and warplanes in the waters and skies around Taiwan on an almost daily basis.
We are willing to strive for the prospect of peaceful reunification with the utmost sincerity and endeavor, but we will never commit ourselves to renouncing the use of force. This is aimed at the interference of external forces and the very small number of Taiwan separatists for Taiwan independence and their independence activities, not the vast majority of Taiwan's people.
On to the West Asia conflict. Israel and Lebanon conflict continues with strikes from both sides. Strikes hitting South Beirut early Wednesday. This comes less than an hour after the Israeli military ordered residents to leave part of the Lebanese capital. Smoke billowed from between buildings in Haret Riq after the first strike, which followed Israeli military spokesman Avichai Adari telling people to leave the area. The Israeli military issued the new order for residents living in southern Beirut to evacuate the region. A warning which usually precedes strikes on the areas pinpointed in the Lebanese capital against Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has opposed any ceasefire deal that would not halt Hezbollah from rearming. While speaking to French President Emmanuel Macron, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said he was opposed to a unilateral ceasefire which does not change the security situation in Lebanon and which will only return it to the way it was. Netanyahu and the Israeli military have insisted there must be a buffer zone along Israel's border with Lebanon where there is no presence of Hezbollah fighters. The United States on Tuesday voiced concerns to its ally Israel over its bombings of Beirut in its campaign in Lebanon against Hezbollah. U.S. officials assured Lebanon that Israel would tamp down its strikes on Beirut and its southern suburbs. Further, the United States has asked Israel to improve Gaza humanitarian situation in the next month or risk military aid. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, in a letter to Israeli officials, said that they must take steps within 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza to avoid legal action involving U.S. military aid. The letter cited Israel's denial of most humanitarian movements between northern and southern Gaza and burdensome and excessive restrictions on what goods can enter Gaza. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that the letter was not meant as a threat, but reiterated the urgency of increasing humanitarian assistance in Gaza.
That it's possible to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza. We know it can be done. We know that the various logistical and bureaucratic obstacles can be surmounted. And so it is incumbent upon the government of Israel to surmount those challenges and get assistance in.
Miller also spelled out reasons for the U.S. to give a 30-day window for the same.
We didn't think it was appropriate to send a letter and just say this has to happen overnight. We made clear there's a short window in which we want to see changes because the humanitarian situation is so dire on the ground.
Next, on to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia on Wednesday launched several drone and missile attacks on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities. In a series of strikes, Russia fired 136 drones and 3 missiles. Ukraine's air defense claimed to destroy 51 of them. The launched drones caused fire at an industrial facility in the western Ukrainian region of Ternopil. More parts of Ukraine are under air raid alert. Also on Tuesday, Russia conducted strikes on personnel and equipment of the Ukrainian armed forces. Next news related to the race for the White House. Georgia judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked a new rule requiring labor-intensive counting of potentially millions of ballots in the US presidential election. Georgia, where early voting began on Tuesday, is one of the 7 states likely to determine the contest between Republican President candidate Donald Trump and his Democratic rival, Vice President Kamala Harris. More in our next report.
Voters in Georgia turned out in record numbers as the battleground state opened early voting for the 5th of November presidential election. Georgia had posted record turnout for the first day of early voting within 6 hours of polls opening, where 16 electoral votes are up for grabs. In many states, early voting is already underway. Georgia's Secretary of State said at least 251,000 votes have already been cast. Georgia is one of the 7 competitive battleground states expected to play a decisive role in deciding the election outcome. Early voting will continue until November 1st, with some counties offering additional voting on Saturdays and Sundays. Meanwhile, a Fulton County judge in Georgia ruled that certifying elections is a required duty of county election boards and they're not allowed to refuse the results based on suspicion of miscounts or fraud. Former US President Donald Trump on Tuesday rallied his supporters in Atlanta, Georgia, as voters in the state turned out in record numbers to cast their ballots early.
They did something to Biden that was amazing. They stole the election from him. I mean, I'm not a fan of Biden. Who could be? But they stole the election. They took it away like candy from a baby. And he's angry. And they're all angry. They're angry as hell. I think he likes me more than he likes her. Can you believe it?
Following an interview with radio host Charlamagne Tha God, US Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris spoke to a small crowd at a viewing party on Tuesday about her connection to Detroit and her plans for tax credits to raise kids and start businesses.
A big part of my plan is to build what I call an opportunity economy, which includes for home ownership, giving people who are first-time homeowners a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to buy their first home.
Harris and Trump are locked in a tight race ahead of the November 5 election, which is expected to be decided by slim margins and where neither side can afford any defections from the main voter bases their parties count on. Ayushi Bhatnagar for DD India.
And DD India's Amritpal Singh is with us from California for more on the US elections. Amrit, why is there so much enthusiasm in the voters of Georgia? And is it something specific to Georgia, or is this sentiment visible across the country?
Could be attributed to the so very, very close. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have been concentrating. Donald Trump was in Atlanta, the capital of Georgia, to campaign. He rigged up the issue of illegal immigrants. Now, this is a southeastern state, really, and it is a swing state. The contest is very, very close. So both, with 16 votes in its kitty, it is a pretty sought-after state after, say, Pennsylvania, which is which is the largest in terms of the vote count of the electors. In the swing states. I mean, there are other big states like California and Texas, etc., which have huge numbers, but they are either, like California is a blue state, or which votes primarily for or traditionally for the Democrats. Texas is a red state which votes for the Republicans, but it is these swing states which swing either way in each election, and in a way decide who the next president of the United States would be. And that's why the record turnout in Georgia is of great interest to voters here, political watchers, and of course both parties and their candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Kamala Harris will be here on Saturday to campaign in Georgia. So essentially trying to woo the black voter, because the black voter forms a sizable population. They're about 1/3 of the total voters in Georgia itself. And if you see, Donald Trump yesterday said that illegal immigrants are taking away black jobs, essentially trying to woo the black voter base there. Kamala also trying to woo the black male voter. She announced a policy decision last week where giving 1 million loans, unsecured unsecured loans or forgivable loans as they're called here, up to $20,000 to people from disadvantaged communities, essentially looking at the black male voter, because some surveys suggested that the black vote was slipping away from the Democrats because they believe the Democrats haven't done enough.
Amrit, you mentioned of the swing states. Why are they so important in the US elections this time?
Okay, swing states are basically states which could vote either way. How the US is, traditionally divided is that there are some states called the red states. The red states primarily or traditionally vote or tend to vote for the Republicans. The states which are called the blue states, which are mainly the coastal states, both on the east and the west coast, states like California, states like Washington, states like New York, New Jersey, Maine. They are Delaware. They are what are called the blue states. They vote traditionally for the Democrats. Now, swing states are the states which shift their voting patterns election to election. There are 7 swing states this time around in the election. The biggest one being Pennsylvania with 19 votes in its kitty. It is the largest, and therefore you see both parties and both leaders campaigning hard there. Then comes Georgia with its 16 votes. Arizona is very important. There is Michigan, there is Wisconsin. So these are the swing states in Nevada. So these are the swing states which can go either way, and that's why we see both leaders going and campaigning and trying to woo the voters there, because practically these are the states who takes these states becomes the next president. So they in a way decide who the next president of the United States would be.
Thank you, Amrit, for those updates. Amritpal Singh reporting from California on the US elections. Next, we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Mayor of a Mexican town succumbed to injuries after he was attacked outside his residence on Tuesday. The murder is being investigated by the prosecutor's office. This is the second incident of a mayor's murder within a month. A fire broke out at a crude oil storage tank in Venezuela's La Salina oil terminal on Tuesday, injuring 21 people, including workers, firefighters and neighbors. The injured were taken to a hospital for medical treatment. Highlighting the slow progress in resolving Haiti's crisis, the Dominican Republic is deporting Haitian migrants residing illegally in the country. Haiti is plagued by brutal gang conflicts, forcing people to flee the country for security. You're with us on DD India News. Are still to come on the show. We understand the powerful speech made by External Affairs Minister Jaishankar at the SCO, calling out cross-border terrorism with our expert. National Conference leader Omar Abdullah takes oath as the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir again. And southern part of India under the spell of heavy rains, flight operations at Chennai International Airport affected.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A quick reminder of the headlines we're tracking at this hour. India's Dr. S. Jaishankar strongly pitches for countering 3 evils of terrorism, extremism and separatism at the SCO Summit underway in Islamabad. US raises concerns with Israel over bombing campaign in Beirut, gives 30 days deadline to boost humanitarian aid into Gaza. And early voting for the US elections begins in the battleground state of Georgia. Voters turn out in record numbers. The rule requiring hand count of election ballots blocked by a judge. And now let's go back to our top story of the representation Jaishankar ji made at the SCO Summit in Islamabad. We're joined by Anil Kumar Trigunayat. Trigunayat ji is a former senior Indian diplomat. Welcome, sir, to the program. So first of all, briefly, what is the political, economic and security significance of this SCO grouping for its member countries? And what is the significance of this particular summit, especially as regards India?
Well, as you're aware, that Shanghai Cooperation Organization has been there since 2001 and even before for the China plus 5 Central Asian countries. And India joined along with Pakistan in 2017. And last year, under India's presidency, we saw Iran joining this. So today, we have 10 member countries and some other observers, dialogue partners, and others. This is a security organization, of which the major remit is to counter terrorism. And for that reason, they also have the RETS infrastructure in which various countries participate and contribute to countering terrorism. But ironically, we also know that there are some member countries who have been not only indulging in cross-border terrorism, but are also pandering to a large number of terrorist groups on their territory, which is being used against India. And the others are supporting them. And so this visit, which is important, has acquired a little more importance in the sense because it is being held in Islamabad, with which our relationship today is at its lowest. And that is also because of the continued persistence of Pakistan's policy of cross-border terrorism and using it as an instrument of their foreign policy towards India, unremittingly. So what Dr. Jaishankar did was he called out what you mentioned is the three evils, that is, we need to be together in combating terrorism, separatism, and extremism, because they're hurting everyone. But then there are countries, so he definitely said that we cannot singularly decide whether one country can be exempted from it. That's simple. So you are part of the SCO, then must follow the SCO charter. Whether it is connectivity, whether it is energy security, whether it is food security, whether it is overall changing dynamic in the world and how to confront them by the member countries. There are important countries in this. There are biggest consumers of oil. There are biggest consumers of producers also part of it. So therefore, it is a very, very important organization. At the same time, it has been hijacked by certain countries for their own objectives, bilateral objectives. And the bilateral issues are generally not raised in this, but they have been mentioned indirectly. And we have seen that Dr. Jaishankar was very forceful and very clearly he articulated India's concerns that if these continue, then nothing else can follow.
So one of the goals that of the SCO that External Affairs Minister Jaishankar emphasized was to strengthen mutual trust, friendship and good neighborliness among member states. So what are the impediments in the way and what is required to solve them?
That is duplicity and double standard. That's the problem. The problem is that, I can tell you that Pakistan has been indulging in the last 4 decades. And I remember I used to be in Russia at the time when one of the media, Russian media asked me that Pakistan has applied for membership of the SCO. At that time, I remember telling them, I said, I have no comment if an organization that claims to be fighting against terrorism wants to include a country which is a sponsor of terrorism. Now, that has come true because of the geopolitics of it. But at the same time, it is also incumbent upon all the member countries to call it out, to try to tell them to prevent it, to stop it, because this is not going to lead them anywhere or the organization anywhere. That is very important. So how do you build the trust? How do you build cooperative leadership? You may continue to work on various issues, but at the same time, the fundamental issues need to be addressed. And that is, number one, impinging on sovereignty of the others. We have seen the China-Pakistan economic corridor, or for that matter, China also putting a hold on designating the terrorist at the United Nations Security Council Committee 1373 or 1267. That has been repeatedly happening. Pakistan continued to let large number of terrorist groups operate from its territory. Now, those are the things that are not something that has grown today. but those need to be contended. And they cannot be if you allow a country to go scot-free all the time. So that is the biggest problem with these organizations.
Dr. Jaishankar also spoke of the need to develop multifaceted cooperation, especially regional cooperation. What would you call, sir, the priority areas for cooperation here?
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one is we have a RETS infrastructure in this, fighting terrorism, in which all countries have been participating, developing strategies, and I'm told that several of the incidents were averted by them. Secondly, we get connectivity is extremely important. This also can't be a pick and choose thing. You remember that when we wanted to send relief supplies of wheat through Pakistan to Afghanistan, it was delayed. It was very difficult to do so. So we had to identify new areas through Jabha. So that is also extremely important. Then health security, the food security, and energy security. These are very real issues that are confronting all members of the region. Apart from the impact of the ongoing wars, and one of the members, Iran, actually directly is in the line there, engaged in this war, one way or the other. So these are all the key issues which are going to have impact the overall outcome of the welfare of the member states.
Two other areas that the External Affairs Minister emphasized in his address were globalization and rebalancing, and the need to harness the opportunities that they have thrown up in terms of trade, investment, connectivity and energy flows. How can all this be taken forward?
Well, what I said is that, there are several challenges, global challenges, and what he also referred to what you just mentioned. Deglobalization is also happening simultaneously. I mean, when we are seeing protectionism is increasing from several countries, including from the West, and there is a more and more divisive nature of the global world that is coming out. It is a fractured world at the moment. Now, what kind of opportunities are emerging out of that? That opportunities come in the sense of the regional collaborations. We are seeing many of the multilateral groupings coming out, plurilateral groupings coming out, like the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or for that matter, the Quad and others, in which India is a part. There are free trade agreements that are coming up. So those are the issues that need to be worked upon. We are talking of pipelines from Central Asia through Iran, Pakistan, but that have not happened because of the trust deficit, because of the kind of things that have moved along. So these are the issues that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed in all sincerity. Only then the trust can be built up. And that's when the big powers of the region can work together more closely and effectively.
And finally, sir, the External Affairs Minister also noted the need for reforming the UN Security Council to ensure proper representation of the developing countries and for the SCO to lead the way in such a change. So what role can SCO play here, and do you see a long road ahead in this matter?
Well, it is right to talk about it, that they should be part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now, who are we talking about? We are talking about expansion of the Security Council. Who is the impediment in the expansion of the Security Council? China, which is a member of the P5, which veto-wielding power. All the other 4 countries have openly not only promoted the reforms, but have also advocated India's place in it. They knowing too well that China is going to veto it or not so soon. It is going to support that also. So what Dr. Jaishankar has said is, he has told that this is an urgency. Then the countries will have to review their stand. Then only the SCO as a major grouping can contribute, because there are at least 2 Security Council members who are part of this, China and Russia, who are the permanent members and who are the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So it is absolutely right that they recognize that the global governance is in crisis. The multinational institutions, multilateral institutions are in a complete disarray. And that is impacting the whole world. And that's why it is important that the reforms take place. It is important that we help in the smooth functioning of those organizations, which should be strengthened through expansion.
Okay, we leave it here. Thank you very much, Anil Trigunaji, for joining us and sharing valuable insights on the subject of SCO. Moving on, Vice President of the National Conference Party, Umar Abdullah, took oath as the first Chief Minister of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir on Wednesday. The oath was administered by Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha. The swearing-in ceremony was attended by Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, National Conference Chief Farooq Abdullah and others. It is noteworthy that this is the first elected government since the abrogation of Article 370. Omar's party secured 42 seats out of 90, while Congress won only 6, with a total 48 seats for the coalition. Congress has announced to not join the government, but to extend support from outside. The Union Territory was under presidential rule since 2018, and that was revoked recently, paving way for the formation of the new government in the Union Territory. More news from India. The South Indian state of Tamil Nadu has been reeling under the spell of heavy rainfall. Capital city Chennai and its neighbouring districts experienced heavy rainfall over the past 24 hours. The rains were recorded at an average of 50 centimetres. Several areas including Tiruvottiur, Manali, TVK Nagar, Anna Nagar received over 200 millimetres of rainfall, leading to significant waterlogging and disruption. The heavy rainfall is due to a depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal. The depression is located 360 kilometres east-southeast of Chennai and southeast of Nellore. With more rain forecast, the Tamil Nadu government has declared a public holiday, while flight operations at the Chennai International Airport has been affected with several delays and cancellations due to poor visibility and weather conditions. And for more on this, DD India's Amberson Elango joins us from Chennai. Amberson, what sort of impact are we seeing of the heavy rainfall in Chennai so far?
As the Indian Meteorological Department has latest update, the depression on the Bay of Bengal, it's nearly around 320 kilometer distance. So the heavy rainfall, which is the Indian Meteorological Department is predicted for red alert to Chennai and neighboring district. But the significant rainfall is not yet registered, and the Meteorological Department also said that the depression is going towards southern Andhra, where the Nellore district, so it's the significant rainfall may be not registered. It goes towards the Tiruvallur and also the southern Andhra place. And so the state administration in full swing on the various administrative activities regarding the measurement and precautions, particularly health and also the electrical related activities. And particularly the Chief Minister also reviewed the situation in the Narayanapuram of Pallikarni, where the Pallikarni marshland is there, where the significant, whenever the flood-like situation happened, the water will be more on that. So he reviewed that. So the continuous focus on that, and also the rain, it's not yet registered in last 6 hours in Chennai and also the neighbouring Kanjipuram, Tiruvallur and Chennai and Chengalpattu district. So we can expect, and last 24 hours registration nearly 15 centimeter, the highest around 30 centimeter in Solavaram. That is comes under Tiruvallur district, that is neighbouring towards southern Andhra. So we can expect that, and this depression zone will be moving towards southern Andhra, and it will reach on the shore nearly tomorrow morning. So we can expect the receding on water level, particularly low-lying area, and also the water rainfall significantly reducing it from tomorrow, means today morning onwards.
Okay,
so
Amberson.
Tomorrow around 17th tomorrow, so the water level and also the rainfall may be decreased. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Amberson, for those updates. Next, we take a look at other stories making news in India. The National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority (NPPA) has set retail prices for 20 new drugs under the Drugs Price Control Order 2013. These medicines target a range of health conditions. These low-cost drugs are used as first-line treatments for conditions like asthma, glaucoma, thalassemia, tuberculosis and mental health disorders. The Maring community, an ethnic group of northeast Indian state of Manipur, celebrated the annual pre-harvest Lamlai festival. The festival was carried out by men and women of the Maring tribe dressed in their traditional attire, and it was followed by the presentation of cultural dances and performances. October 16th marks the 40th raising day of the National Security Guard (NSG), India's elite anti-terror force renowned for its swift, flawless operations. Known as the Black Cats, the NSG exemplifies excellence in national security. You're with us on DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. West Indies pulls out of the biggest heist to enter Women's T20 World Cup semi-finals against all odds. And it was Messi's vintage performance for Argentina. He scored 3 goals to register a 6-0 win over Bolivia in the World Cup qualifying match.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. The auto industry was long the backbone of the German economy, but it's been in some trouble lately. Falling demand, competition from China. There are many problems the sector has been struggling with. Among the hardest hit companies is Volkswagen, and they are finding themselves in court this week. Volkswagen's struggles are being reflected in the overall troubles facing the country, which is grappling with a shrinking industrial sector and an economy that is forecast to contract for a second consecutive year. So Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin now. Lars, what's going on in the auto industry there?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, well, that's a great question. What is going on? This story is so ludicrous. Volkswagen is in trouble, as you rightly pointed out, after they've seen lower sales, most drastically on their once biggest market in China, but also domestically. They're in a desperate need to cut costs. And there were huge protests just a few days ago at Volkswagen plants over the threat of major job cuts, cuts that could cost thousands of workers their positions. Now, as part of their strategy to cut costs, Volkswagen decided to cut salaries for everyone, including management. And they also decided to not extend a raise to former managers that have actually retired early but are still on the company's payroll. Now, around 120 of them are fighting back. They say Volkswagen promised them a raise of 3.3% and a €1,000 bonus to compensate for inflation. And I gotta say, it's almost impressive, the gall of these people not being willing to make any kind of sacrifice and to just keep their demands up while a company is in crisis, partially due to their own doing. Because, as I said, these are not workers on the factory floors. These are actually former managers.
And Lars, why would you say that the management is to blame for the current crisis at Volkswagen?
Well, it just seems pretty clear. For years, the company hasn't reacted fast enough to changing trends in the automotive sector. They were asleep at the wheel when it came to electric mobility, which allowed China to move into that segment at such a pace and with such force that they actually pushed Volkswagen and other older brands to the fringes of the market there. Now, Volkswagen is suffering. However, to be fair, there are other problems too that are outside of Volkswagen's control. A few years into the so-called Verkehrswende, that is the organized switch towards electric mobility, trends in that market are generally not good. Car insurance company Hook just came out with some numbers. As of late, they say, Only 3.9% of customers are buying a fully electric vehicle, down from 6 to 7% last year. As of those already driving an electric car, a full 34% have said they wanted to switch back and buy a combustion engine car next. Now, that's partially due to frustrations over a lack of charging infrastructure. There aren't enough charging stations in Germany, and especially not enough fast, high-powered charging stations. Now, that is something the entire auto industry and the government are to blame for.
Thanks, Lars. Lars Holter joining us from DW Berlin. And time now for some sporting action. Day one of the first test between India and New Zealand has been called off due to rain in Bengaluru. The match is a very crucial series for the Rohit Sharma-led side as they aim for a World Test Championship final berth. If India can clean sweep the three-match series, India will be all but assured of a WTC final spot. India will next face Australia in an away series, and before that, this series at home will be important to garner some crucial points. All eyes will be on youngsters like Yashasvi Jaiswal, who has had a stellar run in recent times. West Indies pulled off the biggest heist of this T20 World Cup and qualified for the semi-finals against all expectations, knocking out one of the favourites, England. Having last beaten England in 2018, West Indies broke a 13-match losing streak and topped Group B to set up a semi-final against New Zealand. West Indies' win was all the more remarkable because they were without former captain and veteran batter Stephanie Taylor, who is struggling with a knee injury. In her absence, Hayley Matthews and Quiana Joseph found form and wiped away the bulk of the 142-run target. This is the only second time England have missed out on the knockouts of a T20 World Cup after being eliminated in the group stage in 2010. West Indies will take on New Zealand in the second semi-final on Friday. And in football, Lionel Messi's hat-trick led Argentina to a comprehensive 6-0 win over Bolivia in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying match. The 37-year-old treated his fans with 3 clinical finishes, 2 assists in a one-sided game. Messi, along with Alvarez and Martinez, gave Argentina a 3-goal lead in the first half itself. With this win, Argentina moved to the top of the points table with 22 points from 10 games. And back to New Delhi, well, the capital has become the centre of a grand celebration of Indian dance as the Sangeet Natak Academy hosts the first ever International Festival on Indian Dance from October 16th to 24th. Organised under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, this historic event aims to bring Indian and global dance communities together to celebrate India's artistic legacy and foster cross-cultural dialogue. A report.
Minister of Culture Gajendra Singh Shekhawat inaugurated the 6-day International Festival on Indian Dance, emphasizing the role of the artist community in preserving India's rich traditions. He stated that through their dedication, India's cultural heritage continues to thrive, and as we progress towards Viksit Bharat or Developed India by 2047, these traditions will lead the way on the global stage.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जब भारत उस दिशा में तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहा है, भारत की स्वीकार्यता सहज रूप से स्थापित हो रही है, जहां भारत पूरे विश्व का नेतृत्व करने के लिए डिफरेंट जो है वैश्विक प्लेटफॉर्म्स पर जब काम कर रहा है, उस समय में हम सौभाग्यशाली हैं कि हम सबको भी इस बदलते हुए भारत के परिदृश्य में काम करने का अवसर मिला है। हम सौभाग्यशाली हैं और उस सौभाग्यशाली पीढ़ी के लोग हैं जिन्हें भारत को विकसित भारत बनाने और वैश्विक भारत बनाने के लिए काम करने का सौभाग्यपूर्ण अवसर मिला है।
Throughout the festival, more than 30 sessions will be held, led by distinguished Padma awardees and renowned dance experts. These sessions will delve into the history and evolution of Indian dance, innovative training methodologies, and emerging technologies in the arts. Discussions will cover how CSR funding can support art projects and use of artificial intelligence in dance, among other topics.
When people are talking about scientific advancement, artificial intelligence, whatnot, I fear, मुझे डर लगता है कि artificial intelligence में कोई सोनल मानसिंह भी डांस कर रही होगी। तो हमें आगे बढ़ना है इन सब चीज़ों को समेटते हुए, लेकिन कैसे इसका उपयोग किया जाए with propriety, with balance, with understanding, with creativity. मुझे लगता है that is also one of the ways forward.
This vibrant 6-day event will also feature an exhibition dedicated to legendary dancers showcasing their rare photographs and costumes that tell the stories of India's iconic dance masters. Each evening at the Kamani Auditorium at New Delhi, attendees will witness live performances by prominent artists offering audiences a captivating cultural experience. As the festival unfolds, it not only honors the timeless art of dance, but also explores ways to sustainable careers in the arts and increase institutional support for the performing arts sector. The International Festival on Indian Dance serves as a beacon of India's cultural diplomacy and dedication to its heritage. With a mix of traditional and contemporary performances, the event invites audiences to immerse themselves in the world of dance, fostering unity and cultural appreciation for the years to come. Kriti Varera's report for DD India.
So that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles, and you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.